It's in the movies, it's everywhere. You can know definitely he's a Russian speaker. I had that stupid accent. Yeah, I'm sorry for calling it stupid, but it is what it is.
I get people who don't understand me most of all, and they'll be like, me and like Maddie will be in a shop, and you know, I'll say something, and then in English, you'll say something in English, they'll understand you, they won't understand me, even though I'm the native speaker. So,
I mean, we want you to present our company. We want you to be a representative of our company. And I'm like, why? And they're like, you have perfect accent.
like, clearly an English person who's working for the Moscow Metro, doing their voiceover, and it's like, the next station is Krasnaya Ploshchad.
You know, with the hand gestures and stuff. No, listen, okay? Listen. You go up, I go down.
Hey everyone, so welcome back to our Jetil Podcast, and this is our next episode. This is our fourth episode, I guess, with our today's guest. Let me just introduce Bryn. He's my friend who just came from the UK here to Almaty, and he's planning to stay here for about 10 days. So, Bryn, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Very happy to be here. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
He's from Britain, he's from the UK, and he has brilliant accent. Those people who appreciate British accent, you can listen to the British pronunciation, British accent today fully. And our second host, our usual host,
the Grandmaster, the Grand Kung Fu Master, straight from Beijing, one and only, baby.
So basically, the first thing on my mind, I was just curious about I just mentioned the accent thing. Since our podcast is only in English, it's held only in English, and that would be interesting for a lot of people to talk a little bit about the accent itself, the topic of the accents. Why? Because, well, personally, I've been a teacher, I don't know, since I remember myself. I mean, from the 8th grade, I've been teaching English and so on. And I have just like a lot of experience of teaching English. And then there are a lot of people who actually have this kind of bias or maybe the fear of their accent. And they just don't start speaking or even practicing this language just because they are kind of ashamed of their pronunciation and accent and so on. And since I know you've been learning Russian and a couple of languages as well.
Right? A bit of German and French as well I've done.
Polish German, as well. German, French, Polish, Russian. You were pretty fluent at Russian.
More or less.
And then the question is, and for you, I guess as well, you were pretty good at a couple of languages also. How do you deal with this problem with accent? I mean, how do you get over this? Have you ever had this kind of attitude towards yourself that you're ashamed of your accent or like something like this? Have you ever had such thing, and how did you overcome it?
Firstly, it's a really good question, and like as any language learner is always quite self-conscious, let's say, about their accent, especially in the initial period. But you know, to be honest, like with everything in language learning, it's a question of like confidence and overcoming that barrier. And so, yeah, for sure, I've had moments where, like, I had it the other day. Literally, I've been learning Russian for a long time. I can speak pretty decent Russian, and I was in a shop and I was asking for something, and like they could clearly tell I had an accent, but the guy actually thought I was German, not British. And so when I told him I was British, he was like, "Oh, really cool." And like, you know, you could perceive that situation in two ways. You could be like, oh my God, I got an accent. That's terrible. You know, like people don't understand me. Or they're like, what actually happened is like the person they saw, then they heard a foreign accent and they found it actually really interesting. And, you know, and like he wanted to talk to me. So like, you know, he asked me extra questions, you know, where are you from? Why are you in Kazakhstan? All that kind of stuff. So actually, you know, it created kind of more interaction, and it was really more of a confidence boost rather than like a confidence subtractor, if you can say that. So yeah, like I think it's a question, it's just about kind of just embracing it, you know. Everyone's gonna have an accent, unless you're like some super fancy actor with a voice coach for like years. Everyone has an accent and you're gonna have one. Just embrace it. And I don't know, maybe I'm lucky because people generally like the British accent, that I always get quite a positive reaction. So yeah, no, I just deal with it.
Yeah, you just deal with that. Yeah. What about you?
That's nice. The same thing. Listen.
Well, can I ask you a question first? Like you've been living in China for a long time.
10 years.
Yeah, and then once you came here, you probably didn't know Russian. Well, you knew Russian.
No, I knew. Of course, I knew. I left when I was 16.
Uh-huh.
When I was 16, I came back when I was 25, almost 26.
Uh-huh. So you came back to Kazakhstan.
Yeah, I knew Russian, but the accents, I had to get rid of the accent in China.
Uh-huh.
I had this probably, Bryn, you know probably because you lived in Russia, and have you heard this Russian accents? Like when the Russian speakers, when they speak in English, they have this strong Russian accent.
Thick accent,
It's in the movies, it's everywhere. You can know definitely he's a Russian speaker.
Yeah, sure.
So I had that stupid accent.
In English.
Yeah, I'm sorry for calling it stupid, but it is what it is. You know, it's not good. It doesn't sound nice, but
Okay.
you know, it's okay. It's okay for a politician to speak that way. But if you are learning and if you want that, you know, if you want to impress somebody or prove it to yourself, it's better to not have an accent. So I had to learn. I noticed that I have this accent when I started becoming friends. When I became friends with some kids from America and kids from England, and we all were learning Chinese. Even Europeans, they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but this is not thank you. You say thank you." I was like, but for me, it was okay. And I was saying, can you imagine? I was saying thank you, and that's how I used to talk. So yeah, once I lost the accent, and I was pretty proud of myself, and I started judging others when somebody has an accent. You know, foreigners, when they're having an accent, it's like, oh, I'm sorry for you. Just kidding, it's okay. Yeah. So I had to. You have to, because it gives you this confidence. It's important, because accent makes you. The accent doesn't mean the person is not intelligent enough.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Right, but it does sound weird because when somebody has an accent, it's like. You get this feeling that he might not understand you, or and then the vibe itself becomes a bit weird. But if you grew up, if you stay in an international place, and it's you can get used to it very quick. In cities like Dubai, full of immigrants, 90% of immigrants, and they all speak in different accents, all in English. And you get used to it, If you speak a good English, they will not understand you. If you speak with an accent, they will understand you.
I get people who don't understand me most of all, and they'll be like, me and Maddie will be in a shop, and I'll say something, and then in English, you'll say something in English. They'll understand you, they won't understand me, even though I'm the native speaker. So yeah. But that's a British thing because our accent system is frankly messed up. Yeah.
It's very interesting how people nowadays consider the way we said already, we mentioned the thing with British people, they don't really have an accent because English was actually created there as a language, and then but nowadays the whole standard is it's all about America more, about the US, because you speak American accent and it's way more common. You barely hear English accent on
it's because
TV.
of the media.
It's the media landscape. No, it's actually a really interesting question, because if you look at the United Kingdom, for example, it's really a small country. It's not very big at all. It's a little island, And there's this thing. Well, there's this statistic that people talk about. You travel 30 kilometers in the United Kingdom, the accent will change, quite considerably. Yeah. And you have a London Cockney accent to a Scouser accent from Liverpool, Birmingham, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish, Belfast. All of that. And for me as an English person who's grown up watching British TV and so on, I could spot those accents from a mile away. I know where you're from. And that kind of sounds weird. But it's actually also a really good kind of conversation starter. So if I'm in a bar in London, right, and there's a guy there and I start talking to him and I can hear that he's got a Liverpool accent, I'm like, "You're from Liverpool?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." Obviously, everyone knows that. And then I start asking him questions about his hometown. So, it's like a conversation starter. And yeah, there is, this standard English. I mean, we call it Queen's English, or maybe we should call it King's English now, who knows? That's the stuff that you'll hear on the BBC and so on. That's the standard British English. But people don't really talk like that so much day to day. That's quite, you say, posh is probably the right word. I really like the UK being such a small country, but it's so vibrant in its kind of like in terms of accents, and that just it's really interesting. So when you're in the UK, you've got to be trying to work out which accent is which and like who's who, and it's a whole kettle of fish.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, I faced the same thing. Like when I was like the thing with getting rid of the accent and so on. I mean, people nowadays, they pay attention to not your being the expert of the language, but then I mean, you may be very good. You have a lot of knowledge in English, but just because you have an accent, they may not consider you as an expert or professional, and it's not good. In fact, I mean. Thanks God, I don't have such problem. I mean, people always like doing comments and like saying, "Oh, you have a brilliant accent, brilliant pronunciation, and so on." And then, of course, I mean, thank you. But I know a bunch of people who have accent, strong accent, but they're pretty good at English. I mean, come on.
They know way more words.
Sure,
Like
sure.
I also know this. I got a few friends. Like, I don't know. I consider them as one of those people who know all the words in English. You ask anything, you say, "Hey, yo, how do you say this in English?" He will know the word. Yeah, he's like walking dictionary. I don't even know so many words. He will test me also. Do you know how to say this and this? I was like, oh man, I never thought of that. But he has an accent. Like they have an accent, so automatically they sound not so. Professional. They sound like they are learning, to be honest.
Well, to be honest, I think it's like anything in life, or at least in professional sphere. Things are normally like 70% content, 30% presentation, and it's the same with accents and language learning. So if you've got really take English for example, really good English, that means you've got like a high content level, and then the accent is the presentation, it's your delivery, and everyone likes a pretty presentation. Everyone needs like things to kind of like look nice, and it is important, but it's still not the most important thing. The most important thing remains the kind of the quality of your language, your grammar and all of that kind of stuff, and just like your vocabulary. But like everyone likes to have the cherry on the top, the nice presentation, and that kind of completes the package. So that's the whole idea. Is like obviously strive to get your accent as good as possible, but it's still it's a presentational element, and thing. That's how I like to think about it.
I think. You just mentioned the thing with the professionalism, and then you have, it's like the same thing. I do a job nowadays. I mean, a lot of people are asking them, like they are offering a good job positions for me, and then all of them, just because I have this accent, like this American accent, exactly. And then they're like, oh, I mean, we want you to present our company. We want you to be a representative of our company, and I'm like, why? And then they're like, you have perfect accent. Like, okay.
It opens doors for you.
But I mean, I'm saying I may not be that good at your sphere that you're doing. I'm not that good at engineering, for example. But just because I have this accent, they think that I may know a lot of things in English, and then they have this kind of stereotypes.
I remember I came to your office a few days ago. I took the subway. So the subway. Our subways used to have this voice, that tells you which station is next and stuff. The announcement. It was nice before. It was like perfect English. Now they have a new voice.
Really?
Yeah, and I can tell it's a Kazakh girl's voice with an accent. And it's like, she doesn't say, be careful. She says, be careful. And like, it sounds weird. And I was so angry, I was pissed off. When I got off the train and I started commenting, I found their page on Instagram, and then I was writing this problem, and I wanted to mention you, but instead I wrote, okay, if you need help, I know a guy. Because I was thinking, Madi should do that thing, because I'll be like, oh, that's my boy right there. I'll be in the subway, like next station. It's a Moscow station. Yeah,
be aware of the closing door.
This is like you said, the presentation, man. This is a face. The foreigners. Why do you need that English in that announcement? Why do you need English in airports?
Yeah, I mean it's good, but also I think it has a certain. For example, in Dubai, I mean they have the same problem. They have the metro and an announcement there in English, is also presented with the Arabic accent.
Yes, and the name of the stations, they just leave it in Arabic.
That is really interesting because when I was in Moscow, it was the same thing. It's like you'd be in the subway, the metro, and you'd be like, next station is Red Square, but then it'd be in Russian, and then it would be, in English. Clearly an English person who'd working for the Moscow Metro doing their voiceover. And it was like, the next station is Krasnaya Ploshchad. Yeah. And it's just like very, very, like in a really strong English accent, saying the Russian word. Even though like any English tourist in Moscow would call it Red Square. And so like, it's kind of an interesting thing that why they decided to put it in the Russian, but with like a really strong English accent. Yeah. And it's the presentation thing.
Yeah, I think when you ask around, I think they always call this. Maybe I think there are people who's supposed to analyze this, and then they came up with this, right? Somebody said, you know what, we should let a British guy say Krasnaya Ploshchad instead of Red Square. So yeah, in Dubai, we go there really often. So the funny thing is, the staff mostly are from Pakistan and India, and they have a strong accent in English. So when you speak to them, as I do right now, most of the time they don't understand me, like clearly. So if I use with an accent, so when I see them, it's like, please, can you come here? No, here, sit, stand. So when I say it like this, they understand me so like really good. So I don't know, you get used to it. And then another lady comes, she's Filipino. And then another person comes, he's from Malaysia. And this guy's from Thailand. And the cleaning guy is from Pakistan. And the chef is from India. And this guy's from Egypt. And the shisha guy is from Lebanon. It's so weird. They all have different accents. And by the end of the day, you get tired and you get like confused. You start speaking weird English,
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing with the accent is that you're right about when you start speaking to them. I mean, usually the stuff and everything, they have their own way to talk English, to speak English. And then once in the airport, I was standing in line, I swear to God, I was standing in the line, and then she was like, it was my turn. So I was like, they were asking me where am I heading to, like, what am I doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm just tourist, like, I was just kind of traveling around. And they're like, what? What?
Yeah.
What did you say? like this. And then
normal English.
Yeah. And then you're like, I'm actually speaking normal English, right? So then you realize that English, the thing with the English is that it became international.
Yeah, it is.
The language itself became so international, and then nowadays you can't say that English is used only in the UK or in the US or in Australia. It's everywhere, like in Kazakhstan and Russia. It became
they use
international.
however they want. Really, you can use English and you can hear and foreigners speaking English, and the brain is functioning in their own language. You can clearly tell this. Yeah. You can see this in Dubai, for example, and staff of the hotel. Let's say he's from Nepal, and the guy speaking to him, let's say he's from, he's a neighboring country, Jordan, Lebanese or Lebanon, I don't know. And if it's an older people, like older gentleman, his brain is functioning in Arabic. Yeah. And he's explaining all this thing in English, with the hand gestures and stuff. No, listen, okay? Listen. You go up, I go down. So English became really, it's a global language, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like my perspective as a person whose native language is English is that sometimes you like find yourself in these environments where you're aware that everyone can understand you. And like as someone who learns languages and likes and understands other languages, it's always like I know what it feels like. You can almost hide in another language where no one can understand you, and you can't really do that with English. If you're on a bus and you want to talk about the person who's sitting in front of you who's wearing like a silly hat or something, and you want to laugh at them, like you can't really do that in London because they'll understand you, or you can't really do that anywhere because everyone will understand you. There's a funny story that I heard about once. It's like some British diplomats who were working at the European Union when the UK was still part of the European Union, they used to complain that all of the other countries the French and the German and so on. Like during a meeting with everyone, they could if they wanted to say something to their colleague and no one else was Sunday, they'd be go into German and then the Brits wouldn't understand and the French wouldn't understand and so on. And it was a kind of little secret language. And every country could almost do that except for the British. And they got really annoyed. And so what they started to do was use really strong British slang and put on a strong kind of Scottish accent or something to try and hide it so the French and the German wouldn't understand. And I don't know, maybe they got so fed up they just decided to leave the whole thing anyway. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, but that happened.
When you said about when you talked about it's a good convo starter, right? Conversation starter, the accents here. You can tell also in Kazakhstan, but it's in our language. You can tell a person is from the south, that he's from the north or east and or west, and they have all these different dialects. And I don't know if we start conversations with this here. We get annoyed by this. We're oh, there we go again.
I don't think in terms of linguistics, they're not accents actually or dialects. It's just about the way they talk and then endings. I mean, we do those parallels with usually with Japanese and Kazakh language. They're kind of similar, the Altaic family group and so on. But when it comes to the real thing is that when you're in Japan and then you speak this standard Japanese language, you can't understand people from the south or north. Yeah, it's absolutely different. Yeah, it's so different. The dialect, I would say. But in Kazakhstan, we don't really have a dialect. We just have certain words that are different.
Yeah, we understand each other.
Yeah, we do understand each other. For example, if you're border, I mean, if you're from the south part and then you were probably close to Uzbekistan, and then you have some words that are taken.
They also
from
replace some words that like Eastern Kazakhstan calls the onion garlic, the west of the garlic calls an onion. It's different. This type of things.
Interesting. So how does it work in Kazakhstan? Do accents, are they ever a hurdle, a barrier? Because for example, taking the example of the UK, for a long time, in the past, if you had a regional accent, if you didn't speak Queen's English, you might find it difficult to become I don't know, a television presenter or a radio host or something, and they wouldn't hire you because you've got an accent. Nowadays things have changed slightly, and they try to kind of they understand that that's not really fair, and they're trying to promote, I guess, regional accents. And you listen to the radio nowadays and you'll hear accents from over the place. And I was just interested in Kazakhstan. You say there are different accents. Has it ever been a hurdle in society?
I think I'm a person who's been to a lot of interviews, and then I actually see and hear those people. And it's very important that you don't mix up the language, because we have a very strong Russian impact. And then those TV hosts and everyone, they preferably it's better if you don't mix up the language. It's better if you speak only Kazakh, clear Kazakh, or clear Russian. Please, if you're a TV presenter, then don't use them both at the same time. It's very important, because I was even interviewed once, and they're I added some words e instead of janye, and then janye it's e and yeah. And then it happened once, and they were please, could you stop mixing up the language? Speak Russian or Kazakh.
Yeah. Consistency is key. Yeah.
So the thing with the accent is that, how you just said, the thing in Kazakhstan is that you do have to be, just, I think, a professional of the sphere, and you shouldn't mix up the language. If it's Kazakh,
I guess that's a specific nature of society, because you have a bilingual society. We don't really have that at all, unless in Wales perhaps, but
presentation,
Yeah. Well, what about this thing? Listen, I was curious about the thing with the language itself, since you are the native and you're the representative of English itself, English language first of all, and then while traveling around, while traveling and so on, do you feel any privileges speaking English? And then how do you adapt your language, for example, as you have accent, we so call? how do you talk to those people? Do you try to speak slowly or?
It completely depends on the situation, to be honest. As I say, I'm a language learner myself, so obviously, when I
understand the situation.
I understand the context, and when I can, if I'm like learning that particular language, I'll try to use that language, obviously. But like, if I don't speak Spanish, I was in Sweden not that long ago, I don't speak Swedish, and so obviously I was using English. And you just have to kind of understand the situation, to be honest. And respect that, that person is not their native language. And then, some people, so many people with like fantastic English nowadays, and you can understand that pretty quickly and start talking normally. But if it's a person slightly older or something like that, you just have to be kind of like respectful and so on. And this is the thing, this is the problem, I would say, in the UK, probably in the US, Australia as well, is that not everyone learns languages because of this whole lingua franca thing. So there's a lot of people who don't learn languages at all because frankly they don't need to. Most of them, don't travel that much anyway, and if they do, it's places where you can get by with English. And so when they do enter into a scenario where that person doesn't speak English that well, they will just carry on speaking as normal. They'll speak, they're just like, they can't kind of compute the idea that this person doesn't understand like your English very well. And so that's, I don't know, I've kind of been frustrated by that in the past with people who, English speakers who don't learn other languages. They don't kind of get the idea that someone doesn't understand them. And that's where the problem. But like, if you're on the other side of that, if you're an English learner and someone like an English person speaking to you like that, then, don't worry. That's kind of their problem. It's not your problem. Like if you don't understand them, that's just as much their fault as like your fault. So, just got to say like, sorry, this is, I'm learning English, and most people I think will be like, sorry, speak a little slower and so on. That's right. Yeah, you just have to kind of have hope in the humanity of people.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do you adapt to Russia? Like, what do you think? What was your impression in this Central Asia? Now you're in Central Asia, in Russia. Like,
is there a difference? Like,
we have a similar mentality, and the way we behave, our people, the way the body language, in general, how we behave and stuff. So how do you adapt to that, and what do you think of it? What was your impression?
It's a really good question, to be honest. And I've been interested in like all things kind of Russian, Central Asian, kind of Eurasian for a long time. And there is this kind of stereotype in Europe, at least, that like Russians and maybe by extension like Central Asians and so on are like kind of quite cold and so on. And like quite closed and so on. That's just complete rubbish. And even if it is true, it's only true at like first glance, as it were. And so in the UK and the US, for example, people are very, very open. But that also means that they're maybe that's sometimes quite superficial. And so like it's very easy to make friends with an American, but it's like harder to be friends, like properly friends.
There's always a distance.
A
barrier.
Exactly. And then in Russia, and I found that it's quite hard to make friends. But once you've made a friend, you're like really good friends. You can trust in that and so on. And I say I haven't been in Kazakhstan long enough to understand yet, but like people here are super lovely. Like I've been here all of like 3 days. There's been 2 scenarios where I was paying in cash and I didn't have the like right change, and they didn't have it either. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. Just like, it costs like whatever. And I paid a little less, and he's like, yeah, it's fine. Like that, I thought, that's already happened twice in 3 days. That's a good sign, isn't it? Like that means people are nice, they're very relaxed and so on. So yeah.
I mean, it's quite similar with Russia, with Russians in terms of, I think mentality is quite similar, but I mean, the uniqueness, I would say, of Kazakhstan is that we still have this Eastern impact, from East, and then like kind of hospitality on the highest level and everything. Because I don't know, I mean, once my friend from Japan came here, he was also traveling around and he visited Almaty, and I invited him to stay. I mean, he was here about 2 weeks. He stayed with my grandparents. I mean, we have like dacha, the village. So we have it, and then he stayed here for 2 weeks for free, then that was a good experience for me. But then when I was visiting Japan, I mean, he didn't invite me in his house. I mean, I was like, Like I was like, no. I mean, it's not like I'm not offended by that or anything, but I just understood how different cultures are, and then how different are people, and then I have nothing to do with this. I mean, but it was just interesting experience how our people and when Kazakh people nowadays say that we're very hospitable and then we were open it to the outside world.
Now.
It's true.
It is true.
It's so true, actually.
It is weird because remember the guy I told you from England. He was traveling from China here and stuff. He was also staying here for free. Like he stayed in some hostels and hotels and some nights he stayed at like the new friends he met at the bar. You know, like so kind of how can you bring somebody else to your home and you just met? But that's the hospitality. That's our culture. In China, I had this friends from America. So when I went to their room for like I think 15 minutes earlier than I was supposed to be, and like he was eating, he was having a lunch, so he wasn't so happy to see me. You know, that was weird. And also I was just waiting, and like he didn't offer me anything. He was eating. I was like, damn, like it's so weird because if he comes to my room, you know, I'll offer him a food, drink, or sit down. It's okay, whatever, you know. You came earlier, later, doesn't matter. So which like it's a huge difference because we set a time at 4 p.m. I came at 3:45, and he wasn't like ready, you know. He was like dude, like I'm not ready. What are you doing here?
What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
What are you hoping for?
This is I think it's a good thing.
Sure.
Kazakhs are kind. Kazakhs are, you know, we welcome foreigners. We welcome everyone and anyone, whoever is coming here with peace and love and respect. You know, we give you the same thing.
Do you think? I mean, we're turning to the political point, political issue now. For example, the current situation which is going on, like there are a lot of Russians who are coming here to Kazakhstan, and a lot of them are staying. A lot of them are planning to stay here. Some of them are going other countries, living to other countries and so on. Those who are planning to stay here, for example, of course, we said already that we are good. I mean, the hospitality on the highest level, and then we are welcoming everyone who's coming here. But do you think sometimes that since we're not Soviet Union anymore, and then we have our own independence, and then we have our own rules, laws, and everything, structure, system, and in such a like fastly changing capitalistic world, do we have to change our own perspectives or our own attitude towards certain issues that are going on in the world, or do we have to be the same? I mean, because I personally think that since we're all living in capitalistic world nowadays, and then sometimes you got to be like super, I don't know, like straightforward, and then you have to be like, you have to also think about your own profit. You know, like what I'm saying. And then, what do you think about that? I mean,
man, I think Kazakhs are at the current situation. Kazakhs are a bit overdoing it a bit, to be honest. You know, we're being good to both sides, both to Ukraine. You know, we support Ukraine. We're being good to Russian citizens that are coming here. And if you watch the news, there are like Kazakhs at the borders, you know, giving them shelters and free food and providing all that thing. First of all, those people who are coming, they have money. First of all, you know, who have money, they're leaving the country. They're fleeing the country, are the ones who have savings. And of course, you have to welcome. You know, we don't have to. They're not our enemies. Clearly, they're against their own government, and nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to go to war. So, you know, we understand. It's okay, but Kazakhs seems we're overdoing it sometimes. You know, especially at the borders. You know, people are just taking 5, 6 Russians home. Like each Kazakh take 5 of them home. You know, they sleep in the kitchen, sleep there. So, I understand. I think government should also help, but. Since the tables have turned, the current situation is in the world is like you said, it's like rapidly. The changes are like every day, boom, boom. You see news. Definitely, Kazakhstan should raise some questions, some issues that we had in the past, especially with Russia. There are a lot of topics that we don't raise, we don't talk about, because you know, as we talked earlier, Russia was the, let's say. He's the one who watches over Central Asia. The Russia is the one was at least the one who was taking care of everything in this region. So we have a lot of this type of, the political issues from the past, where the past Russian government did horribly wrong things to our nation, like to Kazakhs, to Ukrainians, to other minorities. So these things are still open. They're not closed. They're not dismissed. They're just hanging in there. They're in the history. It's dark part of the history. So we have to face this, address this, discuss it. We have to make peace. I think so. I think maybe in few years that will be the right time for Kazakhs to start this, these few topics to get off our chests. Yeah. I think we'll be free after that.
Yeah, interesting. What do you think about this thing, Bryn? Because lastly we were talking about how some of the European countries, they closed the borders.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't allow Russians to come to their countries.
Frankly, with this recent situation, I can see maybe like three major things. There's like the economic side of things, the political side of things, but then there's also the like kind of reputation side of things. So in a sense, there's a lot of Russians who come to Kazakhstan now. Economically, that might be a problem. It means, prices are going up. It's more expensive to rent a flat. But on the other side, it also means, wealthy people are coming to Kazakhstan, investing in local economy, opening businesses, maybe creating jobs and so on. So that's kind of like short term, it might be bad, but long term, it actually might be quite good. On the political side of things, it shows that, Kazakhstan is willing to take people who are running away from war, which is a really good thing and so on, and show solidarity and so on. But I think the most important thing is the reputation of Kazakhstan is really, really positive for that, because I can tell you, I read British news, American news and everything, and people have noticed that Kazakhstan are welcoming these Russians. You see the videos of the babushki kind of giving food to all the Russians and so on. And even though it might put some short-term economic strain on the country, for the reputation of Kazakhstan, it's actually a really good thing. Yeah. Because on the other side, what's Europe's done, it's been okay, we don't support your war, so we're not going to let you in. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously a lot of Russians who also don't support the war, and they feel very much at a loss. Are they against us or are they for it? And so on. And so the fact that Kazakhstan's taken this kind of open thing, that's really, I think, boosted the PR, the optics of Kazakhstan. And I think people should be proud of that, because, and I say, as a kind of an observer from the West, we've noticed that you guys are helping out, and I think that's a really good thing. So yeah, it's just showing the world what Kazakh hospitality means, because maybe people didn't understand before that hospitality was such an important thing in Kazakh culture. Now they understand and they can see that. So yeah, I think it's a good thing in the end for Kazakhstan.
Bryn did open some things, opened my eyes to a lot of things about Kazakhs today.
Sure. Yeah, when you were here and when you just hear, and then as you said, being the outside observer from the situation, and then you see it from outside world, how it's going on, and then you're kind of exposed into this, and then you understand what's really going on from the outside. Yeah. But when you're inside here in Kazakhstan and you see all this people who are coming to Kazakhstan, you consider the situation only from one point?
Because in that situation you can be very blinded by the short-term consequences, because it means there's loads of people on the street, I liked it when it was quieter, the rents have gone up. Obviously that's a really big problem. That's first-hand issues and so on. Of course, and that's completely natural. But what I'm just saying is maybe taking the long-term view, the outside observers, that maybe in the long term really might be a positive thing.
It will be a positive. Yeah, it will be a positive, because the Kazakhstan might be the next biggest player in Central Asia, because location-wise, we have strong neighbors. Strategic-wise, it's a good transit zone, So we have a really good chance to become the biggest one here in Central Asia. So China, and we'll be the next new best friend of China. It's supposed to, and we're good with the West. We're good with Europe. We're good with the UN. Part of the UN. We're good with America. think
And I
that's...
mean, in my opinion, Kazakhstan's got a really good basis. You know, it's got like a vibrant, growing population, intelligent population. You know, like that education's quite high. Kind of, you know, you find that across all of the post-Soviet countries. Is that the kind of even though some of them are like, you know, developing countries, especially, you know, like Tajikistan, whatever. They're still, their level of education is high compared to their GDP and so on, like a lot higher. And so that gives you a really, really good basis to grow from. And so, you know, I think it's a positive thing that the kind of the credentials are there, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You made my day for today, to be honest, really. I'm going to be very proud today. I'm a proud Kazakh today.
Okay, guys. So basically, that was the end of our 4th episode. It was nice to talk to Bryn, and then, but we're not ending up. We're probably shooting now our next episode also with Bryn. And thank you. Put the thumbs up and write your comments down. What do you think about all this issues that we've discussed?
Spend some money to save Bryn.
Goodbye. Take care.
Bye-bye. See you later, guys.